German lawmakers have approved a package of measures to slow the fourth wave of the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, this comes as the country hits another daily infection record with more than 65,000 new cases reported in the last 24 hours. Many of the new patients are unvaccinated. Hospitals are running out of bed space and staff are struggling with exhaustion. Germany's disease control agency, the Robert Koch Institute, is warning of a serious emergency this winter. Well, let's get more from Julia Saudelli, who's DW political correspondent. She's in the Bundestag, the German parliament. Welcome, Julia. How different are these new laws to what was there before?
Well, the big difference is that what has been in force until now was something that the government had to call, and that was a pandemic state of emergency. The pandemic state of emergency made it possible for Germany's federal government to implement restrictions and quite tough measures themselves, like closing shops or restaurants or closing schools, for example, without having to go through the German parliament. Now, the parties that are looking to form the next government coalition, so the Greens, the Social Democrats and the FDP, have decided to let this pandemic state of emergency expire. That happens next week, and to instead propose a new law that gives Germany's federal states a toolkit for them to apply measures that are needed to stem the current wave of the pandemic. So that sort of shifts the power dynamic a bit from the federal government to the parliament and Germany's states. Now, some of these measures had already been in place before, for example, the possibility to implement a mask mandate or to enforce social distancing, but there are some new measures that are added to this toolkit. One of these measures is the need for employees to be vaccinated or to test negative to be able to access their workplace. This also applies to public transport. For example, to access a train or a bus, someone has to be vaccinated or tested negative. And there will also be a push for employers to send their employees to work from home when that is possible. Now, earlier I spoke to Karl Lauterbach. He is a member of parliament for the Social Democrats, and he is the party's health expert. And I asked him that given that his party was in government until now with Angela Merkel's CDU, why was the country not prepared for this very strong fourth wave that has hit it?
Well, I think the pandemic, the fourth wave was underestimated. Some scientists were not really given an alert, others were, and there was a lot of wishful thinking in our government. As a matter of fact, many government officials believed that the pandemic is coming to an end and that we will have a kind of a freedom day like what we had in UK or also in Denmark. So we reacted too late, and we are now in a more or less catastrophic situation.
And the current measures that have been voted on today, do you think they go far enough, or should we also be looking at further restrictions, for example, for the unvaccinated?
The restrictions that we decided today will work if they are used appropriately and if we really use them to the fullest extent. But if we do that, as a matter of fact, I believe that we will be able to lower the R value, the reproduction value, below 1, and we will be able to contain the spread.
You have called for officials to react and to deal with the situation many times. Why have your calls gone unheeded?
I cannot speculate why the calls have not been picked up by some of the ministers and, let's say, governors. But as a matter of fact, we have to look forward and we have to handle the situation as we see it now.
And we see quite a low rate of vaccination in Germany compared to many other countries in Europe. Do you think the current measures can convince those who have not yet been vaccinated to go and get the shot, or can these people be convinced at all?
I do think that at least part of these people can be convinced and will be convinced. But what is more important is that we basically manage the spread, by the measures. We have to protect those who are prepared to be vaccinated, and we have to basically protect also those that are vaccinated, where the vaccination is not fully working any longer. But I do think a lot of what has been said today will make those who are undecided reconsider their position.
Right, so that's Karl Lauterbach, a German lawmaker and epidemiologist. Back to Julia Saudelli. Julia, Germany has quite a low vaccination rate compared to a lot of other European countries. Why is that?
There are a lot of factors at play. There is a certain part of the population that doesn't seem to want the vaccine at all, and it's experts have also said that it might be hard to convince them. But we have also seen, for example, a lot of big vaccination centers being closed recently in Germany because a lot of the doses had been distributed and a lot of these places were shut down. We've also seen now, for example, with booster shots, maybe the communication in terms of how important it is to get the booster shot has not been very clear. And all of these factors together have led to one of the lowest vaccination rates in Western Europe. And it is something that is troubling authorities, and they're trying to find solutions to improve that. For example, implementing the mandatory vaccination or negative test to enter workplaces. They hope that might incentivize people to go and get the shot, and they hope that this will be effective.
All right, Julia Saudelli, thank you for that. Julia Saudelli in the German Parliament. Well, Germany's Vaccine Commission has approved booster vaccinations for everyone over the age of 18, but something like 30% of Germans still haven't had their first jab, as we've been hearing. And a large proportion of them have no intention of getting vaccinated. And that includes some who work with society's most vulnerable.
It was a huge shock when 16 residents at this care facility for the elderly in Brandenburg died from COVID-19, despite having been fully vaccinated. The case made headlines nationwide because about half of the facility's staff had not had the jab.
It naturally made everyone very sad to hear that it came from the nursing staff. Of course, once again, it makes you aware that old people in particular are dependent on care workers.
Germany is currently discussing making vaccination compulsory, and not only for nursing staff.
I work in the field of medicine, and I can't understand when people with medical training are opposed to it. It's incomprehensible to me.
They are in constant contact with the outside world, and they could carry the infection into the home with them, without wanting to and without knowing it.
Vaccination rates across Germany are well below target. But even if people want to be vaccinated, it's often difficult to make an appointment. Here in Bernau, north of Berlin, there is a pop-up vaccination center once a week in the town hall. People queue for hours to get vaccinated. Most want a booster shot.
It's annoying that vaccination centers were shut down just over a month ago. Then, shortly afterwards, they announced that they wanted to vaccinate several million people within a short space of time. It's annoying, but we'll still do everything we can to vaccinate as many people as possible. But that will only work hand in hand with local doctors.
Some doctors have stopped offering the jab. The government has increased the fee a doctor gets for administering the vaccine to take the pressure off vaccination centers.
The vaccination drive is a disaster. We've been standing here for over an hour and we still have a long way to go. It's very difficult to get an appointment here. It really makes you angry.
Many local politicians are also angry. They're having to deal with vaccination chaos on their doorsteps. Unlike in many other countries, Germany has plenty of vaccines to go around. Just too few people who are vaccinated to stop a fourth wave.